think Putin is a scourge. I think Putin is the new Hitler. I think Putin is lives and breathes and sleeps, dreaming up ways to light fires all over the world, to upset and kill people. And he really has to be removed somehow from his job, because I think he's a one-off, and I think that there isn't another one in the wings.
Let's talk now a little bit about China, which was heavily criticised after the G7 summit, where a communique called on Beijing to stop supplying weapons technology to Moscow and oppose China's militarization in the Pacific. Do you think China has any interest in the war ending in Ukraine?
Yes and no. I don't think that China, apart from making some trade benefit, having some trade benefits, and the biggest trade benefit to China is not that they're selling weapons. They're not directly selling weapons, but what they're getting is cheap oil, gobs of cheap oil from Russia, which has been sanctioned from other countries and banned in other countries. So that's helpful. And then with the money that to help pay for the oil that they buy from Russia, they're selling refrigerators and toys and cars and all sorts of things from their manufacturing base. So it's a very beneficial, and their trade benefits far outweigh the benefits that Russia gets selling oil to them. But the oil sales to Russia, to China and India are mostly financing Putin's war, because he can't sell this stuff to Europe any longer. So this is the trade-off. China's playing very carefully, and I've also I really, really believe that China is playing a waiting game, because Russia is weakening itself with this war. It's suicidal economically. They're taking advantage, but they're not going too far. They keep making friendly talks with Europe and America, because that's where their customers are. And so I think China is playing a waiting game, hoping that Russia loses the war and or is defeated. And then it's very possible they can get Manchuria back, which is something that they have long since talked about. 200 years ago, it was swiped from China by a czar, and they want Manchuria back, which includes Vladivostok, by the way.
And we talked about that, didn't we, Diane, last time that we spoke? How would you judge current relations between China and Russia? Because they did not send us, and you wrote about this as well, a significant delegation to the St. Petersburg International Forum, Russia's Davos, which actually coincided with D-Day commemorations. And Putin was saying Russia was fostering an alternative to the American-dominated global financial order. But what did the attendants say about his influence and that alternative?
Well, I think that, we're seeing the incredible shrinking Russian image here. Between that showcase conference he holds every year, and the poor attendance by global South nations, also including India and others, and the fact that, he's making a big deal about visiting a pariah in North Korea, indicates, and the fact that he'll be arrested. He couldn't go to the BRICS conference. He couldn't go to the G20 because he faces arrest as a war criminal. I mean, it's the incredible shrinking Putin and his empire that I hope we're seeing, and that seems to be obvious. And he makes a big fanfare and lots of pomp and circumstance and lots of propaganda and rhetoric. But the fact remains that country is going to go out of business.
Because, he's wanted by the ICC, but he's able to travel to Vietnam. And that is one of the complaints, I think, perhaps unsaid, about him making these kind of trips at the moment. It kind of normalizes him as a leader, or is that what he's attempting to do, at least?
I think exactly that. I think that's what I am, a leader. I have state dinners thrown for me. There's pomp and circumstances. I get to review their troops. I'm a big deal. That's what it is. And he's got to keep that going.
So the G7 summit agreed to release $50 billion worth of profits on frozen Russian assets by way of a loan to Ukraine. And the EU has now agreed a 14th sanctions package against Russia to further deny Russia access to key technologies, strip it of further energy revenues, tackle its shadow fleet and shadow banking network. How much is that going to hurt Putin and his inner circle?
I think that hurts them. The noose is tightening. There's no question. Diplomatically, economically, and militarily. The weapons are flowing. The Ukrainians are doing better. The losses apparently are staggering in Russia, not that he gives a damn. But the point is that the noose tightens. I think the assets is very important. It's a very important first step. And that, of course, is going to rattle his inner circle because it was threatened, but they didn't believe they'd do it. And they've kind of done it, but not seizing the assets. They haven't confiscated the assets. And they haven't done that because they don't want to start, creating a precedent where the world doesn't like Americans and they seize American assets inside their country. So that was the reason for that. But this is a blow. And I would like to see the next blow. I would really like to see his oligarchy gone after. I would like to see them harassed and denied visas and stripped of citizenships and, just generally repelled around the world, have their properties seized, have to fight for them in court. I think that they don't have power, but I think that could help rattle the regime in Russia a little bit.
There's also an argument that you could put pressure on Russia into ending the war in Ukraine by putting immediate financial pressure on it, not only in the ways we've just talked about, but enforcing it to pay Ukraine damages. How would that work?
Well, I guess they'd have to just, I don't know the mechanism. I don't know who would be doing the assessments and collections. I guess through the United Nations, which did this before in the Kuwait Iraq situation. The United Nations took over and demanded reparations from Iraq for invading Kuwait and got them, 52 billion. It took time. They set up committees. There's a process. It's all in place. It has to be done through the United Nations. The catch is that the United Nations Security Council policed that reparations collection. And, Putin enjoys a veto. That's another thing that must be addressed. Russia has to be kicked out of the United Nations permanently. No questions asked. Gone.
Let's just return again to the St. Petersburg International Forum, because Putin also said his forces were prevailing on the battlefield in Ukraine. How strong do you think the resolve of NATO allies is now to make sure they don't prevail and that they support Ukraine to deliver a catastrophic defeat to Russia?
I think they're frightened. I think they get it. I think Germany even gets it. Excuse me, Germany is psychiatrically a mess, frankly. I mean, they really don't want to, the word war terrifies them. I mean, it's post-traumatic stress disorder because the war completely destroyed their country and their people and everything they stood for, and nearly ruined the world. So they really avoid it to the best extent they can, but now they are also starting to pull their weight, certainly financially and also in terms of arms provisions. And Macron has led this, and he's also got some issues, but that's a different story. The Europeans are very, very strong, and led by the Baltics, Poland, Netherlands, who it looks like is going to provide the next head of NATO, Mark Rutte. And, they're very strong and very supportive. So I think that there's very little chance that the Europeans will wane.
You mentioned Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister, the outgoing Dutch Prime Minister. He is going to be the next NATO Secretary General with the withdrawal of the only other candidate in the ring, Romanian President Klaus Iohannis. He will take over the job at a crucial time, just over a month before the US presidential elections. Good news, I presume.
It's very good news because Rutte has established himself on the right side of this war. The Netherlands has provided, they've just opened up their arsenals and they're handing over all their F-16s. They have done an enormous job diplomatically and financially to support the cause of fighting Russia. So he will be an appropriate cheerleader to continue that. And I think he will also be a forceful advocate inside the United States.
So, Diane, you write prolifically about geopolitics. I'm just wondering, from your point of view at the moment, what is the thing that is kind of like preoccupying your attention the most? What is the thing that concerns you the most?
Putin. I think Putin is a scourge. I think Putin is the new Hitler. I think Putin is lives and breathes and sleeps, dreaming up ways to light fires all over the world, to upset and kill people. And he really has to be removed somehow from his job, because I think he's a one-off, and I think that there isn't another one in the wings, or I hope. And so I think Putin is the biggest challenge. And then, of course, there are other challenges, such as climate and economic reform and poverty. But right now, this one gets fixed, or the world is in for more and more trouble.
Diane Francis, great to speak to you as ever. Thank you very much for your time.